I love it. And as a data scientist, we have this data science joke, which is if an engineer tells you it's AI, it's machine learning. If a CEO tells you it's AI, it's PowerPoint. So,
It's very true. It's very
so
true.
I came up. I mean, I watched all of this really take shape, and as a data scientist, it's basically just statistics. Statistics on a highly distributed network is what a neural network is essentially, and working on kind of early machine learning systems before this all blew up. This concept that people have of AI as this human-like consciousness, it's one iteration of it, but probably the least valuable overall, right? Because it takes so many different systems to work together to create a consciousness. And while that's super cool, the practical purposes are outshined by the things that you're talking about, these specialized AIs that do one thing and one thing well. They look at the inside of your colon, and they are the best thing in the world ever at spotting polyps in your colon, and that is life changing and life saving. So I agree with you. I think those are the most exciting, applications. Another one that I'm really excited about, I'm a space geek as well, and so I've gotten all into kind of like the new space industry, which is a lot of CubeSats and basically just a lot of monitoring planet Earth. And one of the coolest AI companies out there, what they do is they basically gather together images and just sensor data, right? So all these little CubeSats, they take they send them up there, they take photos of the Earth in various wavelengths, infrared and ultraviolet and so on. And they're just taking all these pictures, and all these pictures are flowing into a big database. And then the AI basically looks for certain patterns. So especially with things like climate change, with things like crop yields, I mean, they can predict like avocado futures because they can see how many trucks are on the road or how dry the soil. They can see how dry the soil is from space, and then can tell like where water needs to be redirected and things like that. So both in terms of market economics, but also in terms of our ability to fight climate change, looking at pictures of avocado farms from space using AI is a huge killer app apparently. So
I know. I mean, you got me thinking. Maybe I should use that for buying futures.
well, there are these private companies that are doing it, right, and they own the data, and they got their algorithms that they're running against it. Another one was I have actually a friend here in San Diego as a founder. Same thing. So they buy up all of these just satellite images, and they have their image recognition, and they compare it to the like permits, building permits, and they can find if somebody built an unpermitted structure on their property. And then they send that over to the state of California or wherever and say, look, we've got these violations of permits and people that you can go after. And, obviously they have a contract for that. And so they sell that data to the government. And, sucks to be you if you built an unpermitted ADU, but this, like you said, impossible up until now.
Yeah, and I do think that you mentioned something here, which is when you democratize something, right, and place it in the hands of every person, like we did with the supercomputer, a vast majority of good happens, but then there is a lot of bad that happens, right? I mean, and that is where my mother-in-law, who's naturally in her back nine of her life, tries to book a ticket on United, goes onto the website, clicks on what she thinks is the United website and a number which is apparently United, and gets swindled out thousands of dollars. And all I'm saying is that's a bad side of it. And then, the society sort of, finds ways to deal with it. And I do think that the mass media specifically is, probably propagating a little more of the negative side of AI. I'm not suggesting that we do not do that. In fact, I'm a big sort of proponent of governance around AI, etc., and something that is of tremendous interest to me. However, I do think that, like you said, the benefits of AI will far
Hmm.
outweigh the negatives. But will there
Absolutely.
be negatives?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the
Yeah.
deep fake and
It-
all the rest of it, and
it's an arms
the
race, right?
upcoming elections and all the rest. Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
scary things.
So I worked with OpenAI, so that I coached an executive there for a couple years before, basically like the year before ChatGPT came out. So I got it's kind of a sneak preview of all this stuff, and I'm like, you're going to break the world, right?
Yeah.
And their response was, we are making the poison and the antidote, which was an interesting approach. So they're obviously creating these incredible systems that have the power for good and evil, but they're also creating the detection algorithms and things like that. And I don't know how ubiquitous this is now, but they're basically giving these tools to social media companies, et cetera, to say, hey, you should plug this into your, when somebody uploads a photo, for example, here's your AI automated sort of maybe fact checker, but authenticity checker, because you don't want obviously deep fake type images or or obviously vast misinformation. So here are these tools that can just automatically parse every single social media post and tell you whether or not it was AI generated. Now, looking at the state of social media, I can't tell if they've actually implemented any of that, but
But
it's out
given the
there.
historical record, they're unlikely to. So, and,
If
and,
Taylor
and
Swift has anything to say about it, it seems like they need to do a little bit more work.
yeah,
But
we
that's the
as a
reality of it.
society or as a governance platform completely failed in the social
Mhm.
media aspect of it. And I think, and I know the regulators in the US, China, and the European Union are ensuring that they at least do a little more or a lot more than they did
Mhm.
on the social media platforms when it comes to AI. So
Yeah.
I'm very, very optimistic.
I mean, I can post a video on YouTube with the radio playing in the background, and it will automatically take down my video for copyright infringement.
Yeah.
But I can make a completely falsified AI generated piece of content or article or image or what have you, and it passes. So
It
I know we can do it, and hopefully, the regulators are going to step in and pass some common sense kind of regulations. But give it to governments to do anything common sense.
yeah, I am on the I wouldn't even say that you are on the other side. No, not at all. I am actually very encouraged.
Hmm.
I did happen to have a conversation with Arthi Prabhakaran, who's the advisor to President Biden on AI governance and regulation, etc. And the way they're approaching it, which is bottoms up, asking
Mhm.
organizations to give inputs and be involved and be part of the solution rather than a top-down approach, is very encouraging. And I do
Good.
think that the three primary regulators, U.S., European Union, and China, agree on more things than they disagree on. And quite candidly, I think, Eric, if you come to think of it, none of those three would want the next war to be started by machines. So I think there
Yeah.
is a complete sort of agreement there. I don't really think that anyone wants an increase in crime or deep fakes and all the rest of it. I think there's an agreement there. The basic disagreement, if you really call it that, or difference of opinion, is how do you govern society?
Hmm.
And if
Hmm.
you really see these three worlds, they have very different philosophies.
Hmm.
America is all about individual freedom. And if you really see the AI draft or regulation written by the European Union versus China, it is almost Aristotle and Confucius.
Hmm.
It's just thousands of years of social philosophy being reflected in it, and same with the US. So I think that's where the nuance will lie. I think on majority of the bigger order aspects, I think we are all aligned, which is
Yeah.
encouraging.
That's good because, I mean, this is, we talked about AI being democratizing computers or technology. And that allows for, let's call it asymmetric warfare, right? Just like it took a handful of people to take down the Twin Towers in New York, it would take a handful of people leveraging AI as bad actors to, let's say, swing an election, right? Or create some sort of civil unrest. There's a really interesting game that I discovered recently, and I was playing it with my kids. It's called the Werewolf game, something like that. Have you heard of it?
No,
So it's this
no.
idea, like you get a group of people together, and two people are the werewolves, and then there's another group, and there's some statistical number, let's say half a dozen people that are civilians, and then there's like a game master, and basically it's one of these things where nobody knows who the werewolves are, and then everyone closes their eyes. It's nighttime. The werewolves kind of point at people and can like kill them, right? And then the game master says, "Okay, you're dead, you're dead." And then during the daytime, they start deliberating about who the werewolves are, and they start manipulating each other and trying to lie and trick and so on. And basically, they did this in a psychology experiment. So this game was devised in a lab, and they found that the vast majority of the time, and I'm not going to throw out a statistic because I don't remember it, but the vast majority of the time, the werewolves won. And what this was a scientific or statistical proof that a minority with more information can sway or manipulate or outperform a majority with less information. And they use this to kind of, talk about all of these challenges that we're dealing with here of sort of asymmetric misinformation warfare. So it is a pretty serious risk, and I'm glad to hear that all the countries are aligned on it. But I hope that they take action.
There are two examples of that. I was on a long flight, naturally, Switzerland and back. So I watched this movie called Dumb Money about GameStop.
Yeah.
The trade about GameStop. And it is how a minority, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
who go against the establishment could actually bring down
Yeah.
some of the leading investment houses with billions of dollars at their disposal to do so.
Yeah.
That's one. The second is, it happened almost a year ago, the Silicon Valley Bank going down.
Mm-hmm.
It happened because we live in a social media world, the Twitter world, or whatever it's called now, XYZ.
Twitterverse.
It's just the fact is, making a run at a bank where you get $42 billion being taken out in 36 hours,
Mm-hmm.
no bank survives that. And most of that was just a couple of people saying, holy shit, this could go wrong. And boom. So that's the new world we live in. And
that's true, right? So 100 years ago, when there was a run on the bank, it was a literal physical run. People were standing in line, and all they had to do was close the door.
Correct.
And say, no, you can't have your money. Now everything is at a touch of a button. It's on your device. Things move much faster.
Think of how you marry technology with the medieval instinct of the humans, right? And I'm going to get this wrong, but it essentially says that we've got a Stone Age brain, medieval institutions, and modern technology. And that's a pretty damn risky, combination. Wow. If you come to think of it, of a Stone Age brain, medieval institutions, and modern technology. And the entire, we live in the valley, right? So I hear stories which people are very proud of telling, that the CFO stood in line in front of Silicon Valley Bank and got their money out, well, not in cash, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the phones weren't being answered or the websites were being down. But that sort of frenzy that people, I'm not suggesting that SVB did everything right. They made a lot of mistakes. But as an institution, that was not a fatal blow, right? The stock price would have suffered, all the rest would have happened. But I do think that this modern day environment, bad things can happen a lot faster than you ever realized or thought possible. So
yeah. Wow. Amazing. Well, exciting. Obviously, went down a little bit of a dark path, but that's the dual nature of any really game-changing technology. So to kind of rewind the tape and bring it back, I'm really excited to hear that there is a new wave of technology that will allow for democratization of data and of business intelligence, that we can enable now, more specialized artificial intelligence to solve some really cool problems for humanity that go beyond just the chatbot, which seems to take up most of the mind share, but the real hard work under the hood that companies like yours and others are doing, is really making a difference. So as somebody who's a little long in the tooth and has been through several hype cycles in my career, I always, I'm a skeptic. I'm a bit of a devil's advocate. So I always just look past, okay, is this just a flash in the pan? Is this just hype? And yes, it is. So AI, the chat bot, every new startup is now just a wrapper on top of ChatGPT economy, is a flash in the pan. It is hype. It will go away. But what's always left in the ashes, the phoenix that rises up, is now we've got this incredible technology that was only made possible because there was so much investment in it, like a space race, right? So much investment in it. Now we've got these tools. Now we've got all of these ways of democratizing it and allowing startup founders to access it and solve really hard problems and really valuable problems. And that's really what it always comes down to is, can you solve a real problem better than something that exists today with, the last wave of technology?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Eric. I would probably, there are a couple of comments I'd like to, whether it's an end or,
Yeah.
we still carry on. But I was just going to say, I do think that the generative AI space, and I've lived through, whether you call it the hype cycle or the fundamentally changing technology sort of innovations, right? The entire PC and Windows world, where I started working when we didn't have computers in the office. Well, we did, but we had one monitor for we didn't have personal computers, right? And then the internet, and then to a certain extent cloud, which impacted more the enterprise life than the common user's life, and now the AI hype cycle. Now, change happens a lot faster than we actually think it does. And I was actually seeing a presentation that Vinod Khosla, who's an investor and dear friend, was making, and he sent me those slides. And one of the slides was a picture of 1910 of Fifth Avenue in New York. And there were, call it 70 horse carriages in one car. And then the same picture, same place, or same place, a picture, 1913, 70 cars, one horse.
Wow.
In 3 years, right?
Wow.
Now, using the analogy of cars, the EPA, the esteemed, whatever, energy organization in the US, in 2010 estimated that by the year 2026, there will be 26,000 electric vehicles on the US roads. In 2014 alone, Tesla shipped 80,000 cars. Right? So what these pundits really do is they extrapolate the past and think that they can predict the future.
Right.
The future comes at you a lot faster than we humans even realize. All right. And, you heard of Kai-Fu Lim, a leading, thought leader in AI. He wrote a book about the impact of AI by 2041. And we were with him in Davos, and I think it was CEO of Atlantic who asked, what is it about the book that you would change, having been out in the market for whatever it is, 18, 24 months? And he said something profound. He says, I'll change it to 2028 instead of 2041.
Wow.
So this change is coming. This change is coming, and it's coming faster than we can anticipate as humans. And the last thought I would leave the audience and you with is, we are probably in year 2 of this evolution, this massive evolution. Think about it, where we were in year 2 of PCs. You didn't have a laptop, I didn't have a laptop. Forget about having this in the palm of our hand. Year two of the mobile phones, they look like freaking, tank, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Year two of the internet, go check out the Amazon website in 1995, right, versus where it is today. So the fact is, we are in year two of this evolution, and we are here.
Mhm.
Just strap up for a ride and enjoy it, because I think the next decade or so for us technologists and for even consumers of this technology is going to be one hell of a ride. And I
Yeah.
think, like with everything, it'll be the best of times, and it'll be also very testing times. And I do want to leave with saying that for people like us who are fortunate enough to be in leadership or at least influential positions, it'll require a lot of courage on our part, courage of conviction,
Mhm.
to ensure that we do the right things and make the right choices, and set this technology in a direction which is going to do a lot more good than the other.
Well said. Fantastic. Great way to round out the show. Raj, it's been such a pleasure talking with you. This was really a great time, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Eric. Pleasure was all mine.